So let's get started. Welcome everyone to Donald Knuth's 23rd annual Christmas lecture entitled A Conjecture That Had to Be True. It's hard to sum up who Don Knuth is in a short introduction, but I'll definitely give it my best shot. As many of you know, he's a computer scientist, mathematician, and Professor Emeritus at Stanford University. He's a renowned author of The Art of Computer Programming, which covers many areas of programming algorithms and their analysis. This book is still considered the first and still best comprehensive treatment of its subject, and what the New York Times has called the profession's defining treatise. Don has written several volumes of this book, among other books as well, as you know, so some books to pick up over here. Don is well known for sending a check for $2.56, one hexadecimal dollar, to anyone who can spot an error in his work, so go for it, I say. He has won the first ACM Grace Murray Hopper Award, the Turing Award, the National Medal of Science, the John von Neumann Medal, the Kyoto Prize, among other awards. Very impressive. Also, Don is an accomplished musician, and as his website states, if you drop him a note, he's always down for a jam session. Don will also be turning 80 soon, so make sure to wish him an early happy birthday. And we'll be celebrating in style at a birthday party in northern Sweden, where a symposium is being held. His multimedia work for pipe organ that is 50 years in the making, Fantasia Apocalyptica, will also make its worldwide premiere, so very exciting. A man of many diverse talents. We are so honored to have him here again for his annual lecture, so let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. It's great to see a lot of good friends and a lot of new friends here, and it's also always fun when I have a good story to tell. So I hope you enjoy what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to sit now. As you said, I'm almost 80 years old after all. The title tonight is A Conjecture That Had to Be True. Now this is subtitle is. Why is it so much fun to do research? Because this is the kind of story that I'm going to be talking about is a story that gets repeated over and over again when you're working on problems, especially in mathematics, theoretical computer science, where you actually not only make guesses, but you can also often prove them, So you see something that's really out of the ordinary, and all of a sudden, then you get more and more confirmations of this pattern. You try something else, and it's still the pattern holds, and so you say, you know, it can't be false. On the other hand, how on earth are we going to prove it? And I want to show you an example that I think was particularly fun. That occurred to me this year in April. And then I'll talk about some other ones afterwards. Okay, I got to learn how to use this thing every year, but I think it'll be easy. So let me show you relevant picture. Let me try to zoom in on this guy. Here we go. Okay, you see this? So Mondrian was a painter who was very famous for making compositions where he didn't have to worry about curves and things like this, but he just had rectangles inside a rectangle. And so most of the time tonight I'm going to be talking about dividing a rectangle into rectangles. And this is a problem, of course, that people have been working on long before Mondrian. I mean, you know, we have pavements in bricks, and so on. People lay down rectangles, put them together, and make other rectangles in many different ways. Well, this year I'm writing part of Art of Computer Programming that deals with a really cool data structure called dancing links, and in January, I extended dancing links to a much larger class of problems, and I was thinking, what would be a good problem to use as an interesting test case? And it turned out it related to breaking rectangles into rectangles. So I started playing in April with rectangles into rectangles, and you know, people think that that mathematicians have been working for hundreds of years, and now there's tens of thousands, 100,000 of mathematicians all spending every day working on problems. So how could you possibly still find a simple, down-to-earth problem that hasn't already been studied, way too much? And the answer is those problems aren't rare at all. They keep coming up several times a year, and this is an example where even this very basic problem of rectangle into rectangles had all kinds of sort of stones not yet turned. Okay, so first of all, I'm an integer-oriented person, so I want to convert this into something that I can understand better. So here I have a blow-up picture of that thing, but the colors aren't important. Just the rectangles into rectangles. And so the first thing I want to mention is that any decomposition of rectangles into rectangles can be integerized into what I call a reduced pattern. So you look at all the coordinates of the vertical lines, and you can number them starting with 0. So this would be number 0, this would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 3, this would be 4, and this would be 5. And then similarly for the horizontal lines, so this would be 0, 1, not too many of those, 2, 3. Okay, now, so once you've done that, then you can redraw the picture to just show what the type of this rectangle into rectangle thing is. So I make this into a 3 by 5. So I have 0, 1, 2, 3. And then I have 5 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, whoops, 5. Okay. And so now this, the boundary is always solid. And then there's also this one, which is just this square, and then this one goes 1 to 3 here, 0 to 1 there.
The vertical is a bit wrong.
What?
The vertical seems to be wrong. You added.
The what is wrong?
Yeah, there's one too many rows.
One too many
Rows.
0, 1, 0, 1.
There's one too many rows. Columns are fine.
This is interesting, but why did which one am I missing? This is 0, I went from 0 to 1, then I go to 1 to 2. I see. I labeled the, whoa. Okay, so here we are. But you saved me 20 minutes, so that's really good. Okay, now, okay, so anyway, you see what this is going to be. It's going to be a distorted picture where we have, this is going to be from 2 to 3, and this is going to go like all the way to 4, isn't it? That one there? Okay, it's going to be something like that. Well, actually, just look at the book and you get the answer. The answer here. Okay, so here it is. This is what it. All right, now. All right, so this is a reduced representation, and so the first question you would ask is, how many reduced representations of rectangle into rectangle 3 by 5 are there? And so in fact that's what exercise 340 asks for. How many of them are possible? 3 by 5. Okay, well, any guesses? Just make a guess. There's no prize for this.
5, I'll guess 1 million.
1 million? Okay. How many think it's more than 1 million? How many think it's less than 1 million? How many think it's exactly 1 million? All right. So it's 20,165. Okay. So now of all those decompositions, 3 by 5, what's the largest number of rectangles that you're going to find among them all? What?
2,000.
2,000. No. I'm saying this particular one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But is there one that would have 9 or more than 8? What's the biggest it can be?
15.
15, yes. In fact, you might have been looking ahead. It says the maximum number is obviously m times n. Okay, right. What is the minimum number? Now, this actually turns out to be a tricky question, and I'm not going to take the time to prove it, but you can think about it because there are lots of wrong ways to get the answer, but there's also a very nice short way, and the answer is m plus n minus 1. So in this case, 7, right? 3 plus 5 minus 1. So now, if you have only 6, it's not reduced. You must have left out. In a reduced case, you've got to have something that comes at coordinate 1, something that comes at coordinate 2, and so on. All of the intermediate coordinates have to be there in order to be reduced. Okay. So this is and it turns out that if you insist on reducing it, then the smallest you can get is m plus n minus 1. Well, this is you can check it when m and n equal 1 because you have to have a 1 by 1. That's all you can do. Okay. So there's this question of being the smallest number, and I decided I would call this tight because it's a tight lower bound. In order to have a convenient way to refer to it, I call it a tight paving. So a tight m by n paving is a reduced construction that has n plus n minus 1 rectangles inside of an m by n rectangle. Okay, now everybody knows that the internet is a wonderful resource for finding out about any subject. So I looked up tight paving with Google, and here's what it showed me. Okay, so all right, so in other words, I knew that nobody else had used tight paving for mathematical discussion, but a lot of people who are actually in the paving business, have wonderful machines that will do it tight. Okay, all right, now next, let's try. The question I want to ask is, how many tight pavings are there? Like 3 by 5 or m by n. Okay, that's the question that I decided. Of course, naturally I wanted to investigate it because my beautiful data structure was grinding out all the tight pavings, and I wanted to know if it was getting the right number. And also I had a way to compute these numbers real fast, and so but while we're doing this guessing thing. How many, I said there were 20,165 reduced solutions, but that includes, the tight ones and also this one that's trivial into 15 parts. So with my computer found with only 18 million references to memory, it computed those 20,000. But now it turned out then that one of those cases had 15, 22 of them had 14, 199 had 13, and so on. But then, the smallest case was when there were only 7 rectangles. And how many do you think that might have been? Just a guess, out of the 20,000. Quick. Okay, answer was 1071. Okay, so 1071 ways to do it. So I'm not going to draw them all for you, but I'm going to explain to you how you can actually count that and how that leads to a conjecture that has to be true. Any questions so far? All right. Now, yeah.
What tight paving is again? Can you make it clear what tight paving is?
Tight paving.
Yeah. What
Tight paving of a 3 by 5 is a is a way to divide a 3 by 5 thing into 7 rectangles, and you have to have used every vertical line at least once, and every horizontal line at least once. Okay. Now, and so, but in order to make that concept crystal clear, let's look at smaller cases. So let's first find all the tight pavings. It has to be m plus n minus 1. So let's look at all the tight pavings, for example, 2 by 2. Okay, so now I've got to use, okay, so 2 plus 2 minus 1 is 3. So here's one example, right? Are there any others? So yeah, we got 4 of them because I can rotate this 4 ways, and that's it. Okay, so 2 by 2, we get 4 solutions. Okay, now let's try to get 2 by 3. Or in fact, I'm going to do 3 by n, so let me do 3 by 2. I got a nice piece of paper here to work with. They had a conference in Poland last year, and they sent me this nice pad of paper, and I like it so much that I decided at my birthday party next month I've got to give out note paper. That's it. But actually, the note paper at my birthday party is going to be triangle paper because I have a feeling that all kind of mathematics has never been invented yet because people haven't been given triangle paper. So here we are, 3 by 2, and I got to divide this into four rectangles, and like this is one of them, all right, and well, I can flip it over and get this one. Okay, now let's come up with another one. It's got to be 4, and I've got to have at least two horizontal lines and 1 vertical line. So, yeah, this is a cute one, right? Okay, and it's mirror image. Okay. So 4 of these. Oh, we got sign language coming out of here. All right. This what you drew, this guy here, and now you know four ways to put underneath that, right? Because we already did a lot of 2 by 2s, so I can take any of those 2 by 2s and stick them in there. Okay, so that's this way, and this way, and this way. Okay, and well, we can flip those over, can't we? We can't flip the last one because it's already flipped. It's already its own flip. Okay, so I can put this guy here, and then I can divide this like that, and I can divide this like that, and I can divide this like that. Okay, so now I've got 11. Okay, well, it turns out that's it. Okay, so I run my program, and I get 11 answers, and often when I do it by hand, the computer finds another one, but so then I tried 3 by 3 and 3 by 4 and 3 by 5 and the number of answers I got. So I had okay, n equal, so 3 by n, n equals 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know what to say for n equals 0. N equals 1, there's 3 by 1, there's one way. 3 by 2, we said 11. 3 by 3, it's 64, and here it's 282, and then it was 1071. Okay. Now, I guess 3 by 0 is supposed to be is supposed to divide the thing into 3 plus 0 minus into 2 rectangles. Anyway, let's say 0 for that. Okay. So now, now for the last 30 years or more, there has been a wonderful tool for all kinds of problems of this form and it's been online for a long time. And so we have the online encyclopedia of integer sequences, and this is just the nicest thing since sliced bread for mathematics, because you can compute your way into the literature. If you want to know if anybody else has ever studied a problem, all you have to do is evaluate the first few cases of it, and then you look it up, and there it is. And the hit rate is incredible, and all kinds of mathematicians have discovered each other through the online encyclopedia. Annual appeal, please make a donation to keep it running. This is one of the. I mean, I donate to Wikipedia and Internet Archive and OEIS, which is the wonderful thing. Okay, now, so I fed in these numbers. This was in April, and and so it said this is the number of tight 3x n pavings. What? What's this? Well, it turned out I submitted this entry. But I typed it in April, and nobody had done this yet before, so I knew it was worth looking a little further. Okay, and so then it says, and there's another sequence that it is a triangular array, which is it says for m by n rectangles for all m and n. It gives the number. I submitted that one too. Okay, so here it says it has a formula been invented to explain these numbers, and the answer is yes. There is a simple generating function, a simple closed form. I will reveal it after either the problem is rejected or the solution is published. Because at this time, as I submitted this entry to the online encyclopedia, I also submitted a problem for publication in the American Math Monthly. And so then you give an example, and then okay. So here it was, April 17th. I did the enumeration on Easter Day, April 16th, and April 17th I submitted this, and not only is this a great resource, but the thing is well curated. I mean, within a day, I had 7 people commenting on it and improving my presentation and checking everything out. So OEIS is just fantastic. And indeed, the paper came out in the monthly October, a couple months ago, and here it is. Tight m by n paving is a decomposition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One of the 1071 possible 3x5 pavings is this. Let A sub m and n denote the number of tight m by n pavings. Determine A3n as a function of n, and show that when you've got 3 or more, that the limit of AMN over m to the nth power exists, and compute the limit. Now, actually, I'll say more about this because I didn't. The way they publish it, it sounds as though that I was able to solve this problem. The fact is, I knew it for m equals 3, 4, 5, and 6, and there was this beautiful pattern that had to be true for m equals 7, 8, and so on. But I'll talk more about that later. So now I want to concentrate on the case of 3 by n, and later we'll talk about 4 by n, 5 by n, and so on. All right. Now, in fact, maybe warm up with 2 by n. Let's see. Well. However, that's going to take. I don't want to waste too much time here. So let me skip it. But when you're really working on this, of course, you at least if you do anything like I do, you don't jump quite as fast as to the next step that I took. You first play around with a whole bunch of things and make trial and error, and then you say, oh yeah, this is what's going on, and so on. But pretty soon you come to really, in fact, there's one really great simplification, and that is that the problem is equivalent. That it turns out in all these tight pavings, there's exactly one line in every row and exactly one line in every column. You don't have a line over here and then another line in the same row, okay? And similarly vertically. And furthermore, those lines don't cross each other. They can touch each other. You know, like Japanese tatami mats aren't can touch each other, but they're not supposed to be. They're not supposed to come together. Four corners of tatami mats touching each other. So you don't have a line and another line crossing. So in a tight paving, you never have a crossover situation. Okay, so now this is a tight paving. You can count it. This is 5 by 15, and there's 19 rectangles there. So that's the right number of rectangles. And there's there's one line and everything. And in this solution, I'm just going to examine the horizontal line. Well, of course, we use always the top and bottom are always go the full way, but then here's the one at that height. Here's the one at this height. Here's another one, and here's another one. Okay, so here we have the horizontal lines, and so you know there's going to be m-1 of these intermediate horizontal lines. M+1 lines altogether. So for 5 by something, there are 4 of these lines. And if I look at the endpoints of these things, of course, I'm not going to use all 15 points in the thing. Instead, I've got, you know, here to here and here to here. Okay. So if I look at the endpoints, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, let's call it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the endpoints. 3, 4, 5, 6, and so I'm going to classify all of the 5 by n solutions by what I call the type of the solution, and this is going to be, I'm going to redraw this and forget about all the other cases, and so I'm going to redraw this. So this will be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then, but I'm going to do this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so I redraw this, and so this goes 1 to 6, this goes 2 to 3, this goes 5 to 6, and this goes 2 to 4. Okay. And now the vertical lines at these points are predetermined because they can't cross each other. And so this is going to be sort of the narrowest example of this type. And so here is going to be like that, and here is going to be like that, and here is going to be like this, right? Okay. So this is a tight paving that has the same type. Where I say two things are the same type is if you only look at the horizontal lines and their vertical lines. You ignore all of the ways of sticking verticals in there. Now the key observation is that for every type we can figure out, we can count how many things there are of that type. So I'm going to illustrate that on a small example. In fact, I had here these, which are all these are all reasonable types. These are the types. Wait a minute. There are types of width. So let's see now. Okay. Just no. Okay. I drew here all of the types that are possible for 3 by 2. So why did I leave one of them out? Let's see what's going on here. This is that one. Okay, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Oh, yeah. Okay. These 11 examples actually, if I look only at the horizontal lines, I have some cases like this one where I've never had a horizontal line that started or stopped in the middle, and so this one would actually, the type of that one would be this. Because I say I ignore all the vertical lines that don't have that don't match a horizontal endpoint. Okay, so now here's the thing: if I have a pattern that I can go to this type. I'm going to show how to make lots and lots of 5 by something from this pattern, and the answer is well. Let me draw it a little bigger. So I'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then here I'll go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is just so that I have space to roam as I want to. So now this is going to go across 1 to 6. This is going to go 2 to 3. This is going to go 5 to 6, and this is going to go 2 to 4. And so I now draw in my vertical lines. Hope I do this right. Okay, here we go. Now, so in this region, I can insert as many vertical lines as I want. Maybe none, or I can toss in another one. In this region, I can put a vertical line above or below, or above. But for each time I insert something, I have a choice of putting it up or down because I'm not allowed to cross line. So in this region, I can insert as many times as I want one thing. Here, so I have 1 to the A. Here I can put 2 to the B things in here, where A is some number of 0, 1, sorry, 0 or higher. Here I have choices. In this region, I have 4 choices. In this region, 4 to the C, ways to put in extra vertical lines, still staying within the same type. You know, I have 4 choices, and here I've got 3. So here's 3 to the D, and here I got 2 to the E, and here I have 3 to the F. And so I, you know, for any choice of A, B, C, D, E, F that are at 0 or more, I can make I can insert that, and the resulting pattern is going to be a tight paving. It's also going to reduce to this guy when I ignore all of the vertical lines that don't match the endpoints of a horizontal line, and so the number of tight pavings that reduce to this guy is equal to the sum of 1 to the A times 2 to the B times 4 to the C, 3 to the D, 2 to the E, 3 to the F, over all A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus F is equal to n minus 5 or 6, let's see, 1. If they're all 0, I get 1, 2, 3, 4. I get, so if n is 6, that would be 0. So I guess not everybody gets it, but the point is, every tight paving has a type, and the number of types is small. And then once I know the type, I can count exactly how many for all n, how many have that type, because because for example, well, let me show you all the types now for things of size 3. So we have 3 by. Here's a type that has only one thing long, and so I can insert, in order to be in this type, I can leave it as is. That gives me a 3 by 1, or I can go from that, and I can change it, and I can make it. I'm sorry, this is a 3 by. Okay, so I have to make a 3 by 3. I can choose one of these 3 guys, and then I can choose one of these 3 guys. And so, in order to make so I got 3 by 3. There's going to be 9 ways to do it. I have 3 choices for here and 3 choices for here. 3 by 4. There's going to be 27 ways to do it, and so on. So all of those reduced to this type. However, this one, if I make a 3 by n pattern that reduces to this type, I have 3 to the A ways to do this for some number A, and 2 to the B ways for this. So if I want the total to come out to be 5, A plus B has to be 5. So that means I either have I'm sorry, A plus B has to be 3 because I've already accounted for 2. So I either have 3 here and no here, or 1 here and 2 here, and so on. So that would be 3 cubed times 2 to the 0, or 3 squared times 2 to the 1, or 3 to the 1 times 2 squared, 3 to 0. So that tells me number of 3 by 5 that corresponds to this pattern. Okay. So this is the point, and when you're counting sums of this kind, it's beautiful because the method of generating functions is exactly the solution for this. So if I look at a power series, for example, z over z minus 3, sorry, well, where am I here? Okay, z over 1 minus 3z, for example, is equal to, if I expand this in power series, it's z plus 3z squared plus 9z cubed plus 27z fourth, and so on. This is the sum of a geometric series, and it's z over 1 minus 3z. Now, if I look at the number of 3 by n patterns, that satisfy the number of 3 by n patterns that have this type. I said it was one pattern for 3 by 1, 3 for 3 by 2, 9 for 3 by 3, and so on. So the coefficients of z squared, and so on tell you how many there are of this type. Now, what about this type? Well, here we had to choose 3s and then 2s, and so that turns out to be exactly what 3 minus z times z over 1 minus 2z. You multiply these two power series together, and you get z squared plus something or other. And I have a sheet that shows that shows all these numbers. Somewhere on, yeah, here we go. So are we? This is coming here. So f3 is a z over 1 minus 3z, and the coefficient, and so you get z plus 3z squared 20, so on. So, then f2 squared, that's for this pattern, and so that's z squared 4z cubed. So it turns out that with this pattern we're going to get 1 3 by 2, we're going to get 4 3 by 3, we're going to get 12 z 3 by 4, and so on. So in other words, I say that fk is equal to z over 1 minus kz, and in order to evaluate this particular sum, this is equal to, if I take this and I multiply it by z to the n, I get f1, f2, f4, f3, f2, f3. So I have an actual formula in terms of z's, and I look at the coefficients in that formula, and that tells me exactly how many 5 by n things are going to reduce to that particular type. Okay, so this means I have a way to count all the 3 by n's in particular, because there are these 52 patterns, and the patterns of width 2, there's 2 of them that come out to f2 squared, 2 of them come out to f1, f3, 4 of them come out to be f2, f3, and then these are patterns of size 3, and these are and it was easy to grind out all these patterns, and so then I could feed that to algebra system, and it ground out the numbers for the solution. Okay, so in that way I was able to find the formula. Now, however, I showed you that this is a problem that's published in the Math Monthly from October, right? And it says here, proposed solutions to the problem should be submitted by February 28th, 2018. And so I better not tell you the answer, right? I can just tell you that if you work a little harder, you will get the answer. But I don't want to give away the spoiler alert here, that I can't tell you too much more. Okay, but anyway, I can tell you that my answer. I can tell you at least part of the answer so that you can check your own work, and so I can tell you the leading term of the answer, which I had here. Okay, so in fact okay, so my answer actually. I'm going to actually reveal more than I should, but 3, I can't resist. Okay, A3n is equal to 1/4 times 3 to the n plus 3. Well, I'll give you just a little more. 5 times 2 to the n plus 4. And then plus, mystery terms, okay. So in other words, A3n, according to this, it turns out then that A3n is going to be equal to 256 over 9 times 3 to the n plus terms that only grow as order 2 to the n. Okay, so this is the coefficient here, 256 over 9. Is the rate of growth, times the power of 3 for all the tight pavings that have 3 rows and n column. All right, now, so I have my program, and so naturally I couldn't resist looking at A4. So I had 52 patterns for 52 types for 3 rows. So I went to 4 rows, and it turned out that there were 1,464 different types in the 4 rows. For each of those, I had a formula like F1, F3, F4, something or other. And the types that involve F4 are the ones that are going to have a 4 to the n in the answer. And it turned out that 576 of those types made a small contribution to this leading term for A4. So A4n was equal to something times 4 to the n plus big O of 3 to the n. Well, n times 3 to the n. But now, what's this? What was this magic coefficient? Well, I'm sorry. This was 256 over 9. This one was 27 over 4. Okay. So, so I got 27 over 4, and then I got 256 over 9, and that was too simple to be. This is the sum of 576 individual fractions, each of which was pretty awful. But it all canceled out at the end to be 256 over 9. Okay, so I didn't go to sleep that night. I went to A5n, and it was 78125 over 256 times 5 to the n plus smaller term, and this is power of 5 and 250. It looks pretty. Okay, and the next one was 17496 over 25, and so anyway, the constant in every case turned out to be m to the 2m minus 3 over m minus 1 factorial squared. Have you got the? Oh, you took a picture of it of that formula. Okay, so this was this was a conjecture. Then it worked for m 3, 4, 5, and 6, and this was the sum of more than this was there were 4 million valid types, and it took about 6 hours to do the case m equals 6 to do the calculation, and then I feed it to Mathematica and get and grind out all the coefficients and there it was again checking it out. Okay, so clearly something's going on here. At that point, I submitted it to the Math Monthly. It's a demand explanation. Okay, all right. Now, well. So there was a happy ending to the story because Walter Stromquist was the referee of this problem, and the editor liked it so much that he even told me the referee's name and got me in correspondence with Walter Stromquist, and so Walter found a proof that this is indeed the correct answer, I showed the problem to Richard Stanley and Ira Gessler and many other people, and they said they hadn't any ideas why they thought there might be some connection with spanning trees or something like this, but anyway, Stromquist was the guy who solved it, and so that next year the solution is going to be published. But when I said the conjecture had to be true, I couldn't imagine a world in which these formulas would work for. I mean, there was a great combinatorial mathematician in the 19th century named Thomas Paine Kirkman, and he's known mostly now for what's called Kirkman's schoolgirl problem. But he was a pastor of an English church, and he part-time mathematician. He did all kind of recreations, and one of his papers, which invented what later became known as Steiner triple systems, although Kirkman was way ahead of Steiner. One of his papers generalizes Steiner triple systems to another thing, and he has formulas in there which he claims are true. But when I looked at what his reasoning was, why it was true, it was basically that God wouldn't want the formula to be any more complicated than mine. So he hadn't really proved his formula, but he just sort of said that it had to be true. Because it was too hard to believe that it could be false. Okay, now of course Stromquist gave a rigorous proof. Now, this occurs all the time in research when you see an unusual, unexpected pattern. Then all of a sudden you jump to a conjecture. Then you try it on another couple of cases, and then maybe you're confirmed. And then okay, now it demands explanation, and sometimes then you can find the answer. Sometimes you can't. In many cases, in my own life, I had a conjecture that was based on some numerical thing that I had computed. The most memorable was when I was working on analyzing factoring algorithms, and I was able to determine to 20 decimal places the average size of the second largest factor, I think, of a random n-bit number, and the third largest, and so on. And I looked at this number and I said, this number looks a bit familiar, and so I saw in a book where they had given the first 5 digits and equal to the 5 digits I had derived empirically, and the author of that article called the number e to the minus gamma, where gamma is Euler's constant. And so I said, oh my gosh, e to the minus gamma must be the answer to my problem. So I ran to, this was in the 70s, and we didn't have any powerful symbolic systems on our computers now, but I could log into Maxima at MIT, and I remember I was so nervous. I forgot the phone number, how to log in at MIT, and so on. But finally, I did, and I typed in. I went to my book to look up the decimal expansion of gamma, so that I could tell Maxima, raise e to minus this power and see if it agrees to 20 decimals with the number I just computed. But then I looked at the number I just computed, and I found out that was also in my book. I had also e to the minus gamma in my own book, so I didn't have to use mathematics, but Maxima. But it disagreed in the 16th decimal, and so here I had a very natural mathematical problem, and it agreed with the very natural mathematical expression, but this up to 16 decimals, and then it failed. And so how could this be true? And for the next week I tried, but I had done the numerical integration with my own software, so naturally I suspected a bug, but I couldn't find a single error in it. Well, finally it turned out that my program was right, but I had used a formula for numerical integration that's only correct if the fourth derivative of the function you're integrating is continuous. And this particular function had a discontinuous fourth derivative. So so the answer, so the discrepancy turned out in the 16th decimal place. Okay, now another time I was analyzing the binary Euclidean algorithm, or it wasn't my analysis, it was Richard Brent, and he came up with an analysis, and another, Brigitte Vallet in France came up with another analysis, and they had analysis of the binary algorithm for getting GCD, and they agreed to 11 decimals. But then there was a discrepancy. Well, it turned out that this was a real discrepancy. That there was a little bit of wobble going on when you looked at the complex function that was involved, and it has a very small amplitude, but it actually would show up if you did the exact calculation. There was a small, log n type of periodicity in there with average value 0 that actually affected these integrals. So you can't, just because you have agreement to a lot of places doesn't mean that the conjecture has to be true. I've seen it go both ways. Now, just last month, Bill Gosper sent me a conjecture. Bill, are you here tonight? Okay. Well, and this one I think is almost certainly going to be true. And somebody will find the answer next year, and it involves the golden ratio. People know what the golden ratio is. This is the famous number that's supposed to represent the ratio, the most beautiful proportion between two things, and they call it phi or tau, depending on how sophisticated a mathematician you are. So Bill sent me. Let's zoom in on this number here. 2 to the 2/5 power times the square root of 5 times the gamma function at 1/5 to the 4th power, and divide that by the gamma at 1/10 squared and gamma at 3/10 squared. And okay, now evaluate that to 1,000 decimal. Okay, and so the running time was a third of a second, and it comes out 1.6180339. So this is exactly the golden ratio to 1,000 decimal. Okay, so this has to be true, and there are a bunch of formulas of this kind that have resisted proof for a while, but then somebody cracks them, and we move on and get to another class. I want to end with something that's unsolved, and I have a feeling that that on the one hand it has to be true. God wouldn't want it to be any other way, but I also have a feeling that maybe nobody will ever find a proof. There might not even be a finite proof of the result. And this is related to one of the most classical combinatorial problems of all time, the n queens problem. The problem of placing queens on a chessboard so that they don't attack each other. Now consider the infinite queens problem. So here we have, I'll take the entire first quadrant of the plane, and I imagine that I want to place queens on this so that they don't attack each other. Let's zoom in on the very beginning here. So, the 5 by 5 works out beautifully. But what I'm saying is, what's the smallest possible solution? The lexicographically small first solution to the infinite queens problem. So people also say greedy queens because you put each queen as far to the left as you can without attacking the one previously. So you start out and you put the first queen right there. Then the second queen can't go next to it, but then you can make a nice move away, and the third queen there. Okay. But now the fourth queen, finally you can stick it here in the second column, and the fifth queen you can get into the fourth column. Okay, now the sixth queen, these are all everything is attacked now except up to here. And so the sixth queen goes there in position 9, and then position 11, and then 13 and 15. But then all of a sudden we can fill position 6 with the next queen, and so on. So we get this pattern, and this is a sequence that you can look up in the online Encyclopedia of Integer Sequences, and you'll see that Neil Sloan, the founder of that website, entered this sequence about a year and a half ago, and noticed this incredibly remarkable pattern, and that is that these positions of the queen lie almost exactly on 2 lines. There's the ones that are, where x is greater than y, and those that are x is less than y. And what's the slope of this line? The golden ratio. And what's the slope of this line? 1 over the golden ratio. Okay, so now the agreement is incredibly good, and I wrote a program to calculate the numbers, and it's online. You can look it up. It's a literate program, and it has a lot of interesting little hacks in it. Infinitely many queens, and it needs only on the average something like 9 memory references per value of n, and so you can quickly go up to several hundred billion in the sequence, and when you check it out, suppose I go up to 1 billion. Okay, well then almost all of those numbers are either 161803 or 61803 in the neighborhood of 1 billion plus or minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those numbers are very close to either 5 times a million or 1 billion or 1 billion over 5. The patterns are weird. There are a few extreme points, but the outliers seem to stop at about 4,000 or so, and there's some very tight bounds that seem to be true. On the other hand, it might be like Goldbach's conjecture. We might not ever find a proof of it. We just know that it has to be true because it's overwhelmingly probably true. So now to recapitulate, I showed you the problem that I ran across in April that got me hooked. Where I saw this strange pattern involving powers and factorials, and I checked it, and I said, oh yeah, this has to be true. Then I submitted it to the monthly, and another mathematician saw it. He actually found a way to prove it. So great. Then I gave you a couple other examples of cases where things did turn out to be true that they don't. And here's one that brand new open. How many mathematicians are going to work on it? It's quite intriguing because it has absolutely no economic payoff whatsoever. It's completely you do it just purely for love and beauty. So this is the way research goes, and when you do find a proof, then you're really happy for a couple of days, and of course then the next day you find another problem, and again you have to solve that one. Okay, thanks very much for listening. You have questions?
Could you put up that conjecture again with the gamma function?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Could you put up that conjecture again with the gamma function?
The conjecture about the gamma function, yeah. Okay. So there are a lot of identities that involve the gamma function, gamma x times gamma 1 minus x and various things like this, the triplication formulas and things like this. And this seems to be related to the quintuplication formula, but I think Gosper used it in some new ways, and he brought in some other stuff in here. So, yeah. So, as far as I know, he hasn't solved it yet, but he posted this beginning of October. The reason I think this is going to be solved is because I know that there's a lot of mathematics of this kind, machinery that's there. But the other one, the Queen's problem, it's like nobody even knows that all of the integers are going to occur somewhere in the sequence. There might be some coordinate that's always ruled out. Neil said he thought he had a proof of it, but when he got to writing up the paper, it all collapsed. So it depends on random phenomenon that just one of these queens is probably going to be there, and since we're all on these lines, there's a lot of structure to it. That's why I was able to write this tricky program that needs so few operations to calculate it. A brute force program would be more like n cubed time instead of linear with a very, very small coefficient. The program needs memory proportional to n, but it's very cache friendly. Okay, no more questions. Thank you. Merry Christmas all.